Привет всем, друзья! С вами Никитенко Валерий, репетитор английского языка со стажем более 9 лет. И в этом видео разберем интервью Павла Дурова Такеру Карлсону, посмотрим на его речь и расскажу вам, что в нем правильно, что нет, а также почему не обязательно знать английский и говорить на нем как носитель языка, чтобы вас понимал тот же самый американец.
For our audience, where are you from? How'd you start this and why?
That will be a long story.
That's okay.
I was born in 1984 in the Soviet Union, so it was a fun year to be born in. And back then, I could witness, the deficiencies of the centralized system we had in the Soviet Union. When I was 4 years old, my family moved to Italy, where I could compare what I saw in Turin, Italy, with.
Смотрите, у него есть акцент, русский акцент, не такой сильный, что прям бе, но все же, несмотря на все заслуги Павла Дурова и его, в принципе, высокий вокабуляр и нормальную грамматику, его, когда ты слушаешь, ты понимаешь, что он из Восточной Европы, несмотря на то, что он рассказывает в этом видео, что он жил в Италии в начале своей жизни с родителями и что он чувствует себя европейцем и частью, так сказать, свободной системы. На что хочу обратить внимание здесь, он говорит «I could compare what I saw in touring Italy». Скорее всего, он имеет в виду, что я мог бы себя сравнить. Я мог сравнить в Советской России, в Советском Союзе, то с тем, что я видел в Италии, пока я в ней путешествовал, touring, да, словно он путешествовал по Италии, я бы вместо in, по крайней мере, использовал while, то есть в то время, while touring Italy, потому что после предлога in использовать вроде как глагол или отглагольное слово touring Italy не совсем правильно. Также Павел Дуров использует
One year to be born in, and back then I could witness, the deficiency.
Он использует связку эту то есть по-русски, мне кажется, это можно было бы перевести как типа, знаешь. То есть такое слово, слова, которые на самом деле они не нужны, они считаются паразитами, но они все же важны в речи, когда человек пытается додумать что-то, у него в мозгу, получается, идет загрузка, и он такой, что же я хотел сказать? И в этот момент легче всего сказать какое-то слово-паразит, например, you know.
Of the centralized system we had in the Soviet Union. When I was 4 years old, my family moved to Italy, where I could compare what I saw in Turin, Italy, with what I experienced in the Soviet Union, and I thought the capitalist system, the free market system, is definitely better, at least for me. And I went to school in Italy. I became sort of a part of the European. As a result. But then when the Soviet Union collapsed, we decided to move back to Russia. In Italy, though, me and my brother, we had a lot of fun time. He was shown live on Italian TV as a young prodigy kid who could solve cubic equations in real time, being just 10 years old, and that was considered to be impossible back then in Italy.
I don't know what a cubic equation is, so yeah, it sounds difficult.
Definitely. And when I first went to school in Italy, I didn't know how to speak Italian. I didn't know a single Italian word, and a lot of teachers said, like, this kid will not going to be successful. in our school, by the end of the first year, was second best. By the end of this next year, I was the best student in our class. So it also showed me that, well, you could excel, you could compete. I liked that in competitive environment. And then when we got back to compete, I liked that in competitive environment. And then when we got back to Russia, it was a little bit chaotic. The only reason we got back is my father got an offer to run one of the departments in the St. Petersburg.
Got an offer, то есть мой отец получил приглашение стать кем-то. Можно еще сказать received an offer. Got an offer — это, скорее всего, что-то более такое разговорное и неформальное.
State University is one of the...
Но если вы помните, got — это вторая и третья, вторая форма с глагола got, get, to get. Вот. Он такой неформальный, разговорный, но все же более такая официальная фраза — это to receive an offer.
Famous scholars and writers dealing with ancient Roman literature. And that experience was very different, and I still enjoyed it, because in Russia in the 90s you had these experimental schools where you were in the 90s you had these experimental schools where you were taught everything. Like we had 6 foreign languages, we had math, like very specialized.
6 foreign languages at once?
6 foreign languages in parallel. You would have math similar that you would have in specialized math schools, and like chemistry at the same level you would have at schools specialized in chemistry and biology. So that was really intense. My brother, he became world champion in maths, in the international Olympiads in maths and programming many times in a row, absolute best. Myself, I was just the best student at my school. Also did some victories in local competitions. In several areas, but we both were very passionate about coding and designing stuff. And because we brought this IBM PC XT computer from Italy back in the early 90s, we were one of the few families in Russia who could actually teach ourselves how to program. And we started to do that. I was in the university, I was building websites for my fellow students, and as a result, I started a company that became what they call the Facebook of Russia. We don't like to name it that way because we actually managed to do a lot of things before Facebook, and that defined how the social media industry developed in the years to come. The company's name was VK. I started it when I was 21 years old. I just graduated university, and it eventually became the...
Он говорит, I just graduated university. Глагол graduate требует после себя from, I graduated from university. Также здесь, то есть я только что, ну, здесь perfect нужен. Вопрос present или perfect, но present perfect, я думаю, нормально будет. Но если он говорит о прошедшем, то есть то, что в прошлом, то I had just graduated from university. Но скажу, что обычно, когда мы о чем-то говорим, лучше всего, вот, чтобы не заводить эти present perfect, потому что он тоже его не во все места поставишь, лучше говорить, словно это происходит в настоящем времени, тогда больше создается экшена в вашем разговоре, более как-то красочно это делается. И в таком случае present perfect сюда подойдет просто идеально. То есть вот если бы он сказал I've just graduated from university, я офигел просто от него. Но в принципе у него хорошая такая речь идет.
Largest social network, the most popular social network in Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and a bunch of other post-Soviet countries. That was a significant effort on my side because
Он сказал N, видимо, он не знал, какое прилагательное он будет после этого использовать, но просто если следующее слово у нас начинается с согласного звука, то здесь требуется A significant effort.
I, at a certain point, was the sole employee of the company. I would write the code myself, I would do the design myself, I would manage the servers myself. It was quite intense. I even responded to customer support requests. Barely slept, but that was a fun time when I was 21, 22 years old. And then the company grew, like I said, to somewhere about 100 million active users, which was a lot back then. It was, I think, 2012 or 2011 when we faced our first issues in Russia. Because you see, I was still a big believer in these values of free market, freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. So when the Russian opposition started to use VK to organize large protests in Russia, where like almost 500,000 people would go and protest on the main square or some of the main squares of the city, we were requested to ban these communities on VK. By the government, and I refused.
So the government asked you to shut down communications between their opponents.
Well, VK is a social networking platform,
right.
So they have this large public communities that anybody can join, anybody can read what people are discussing or what the administrators are posting. They can comment, they can share. So it was a tool for these protesters to organize themselves. Back then, it wasn't about us, siding with one side, with one part of the political.
Отличный глагол использует. Давайте я буду не только указывать на его ошибки, но и на плюсы, потому что все же видно, что он не пропускал занятия по английскому. Он здесь глагол to side. Это получается выбрать какую-то сторону. Хороший глагол.
Fight with the other. it was us defending the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly, which we believed was the right thing. But that didn't go too well with the government.
To go well with, то есть понравится кому-то.
And they were not too happy about that, I would say. And in a few years from then, in 2013, we had a similar situation where you had these protests in Ukraine where people again would use VK to organize themselves and go to the main square of the city and show their disagreement with the government.
Yes.
And we received a request/demand from the Russian side saying you have to give us the private data of the organizers of this protest. And our response was, wait a minute, this is a different country. We won't betray our Ukrainian users because you ask us to do that. And we decided to refuse, and that didn't go too well with the Russian government as well. So at the end of that year, I had to make a difficult decision because I was offered basically a choice between two suboptimal options. One of which was I would start complying to whatever the leaders of the country told me to do. The other one was I could sell my stake in the company, retire, resign as the CEO, and leave the country. I chose the latter.
If I can just ask you to pause, it's a little strange because I have heard people say that Telegram is the country because you wouldn't bow to their demands.
Well, that exactly like you're saying, people who have very limited knowledge of where Telegram came from, they would make these claims. They could be encouraged by our competitors who see it as an easy way to discredit us because Telegram is spreading like forest fire, 2.5 million users.
To spread like forest fire – это фраза, которая означает распространяться как лесной пожар. Имеется в виду, что очень быстро завоевывать новых пользователей в данном случае. То есть Telegram, он быстро получает новых пользователей, причем, как дальше Дуров будет говорить, органически.
Sign up every day, and we're sort of a threat. So I'm not surprised there's this perception, because our competitors, they spend tens of billions on marketing, and they're known for using PR firms to also engage in campaigns like that. So
how much do you spend on marketing?
Zero.
$0 in dollars?
$0. We've never spent anything on acquiring users. We've never spent any anything on acquiring users for marketing purposes. We never promoted Telegram.
Здесь тоже бы подошел present perfect, но он, кажется, прожевывает вот это в данном случае.
Users for marketing purposes. We never promoted Telegram.
Да, то есть он просто говорит we never promoted. Но, опять же, чисто в разговоре, возможно, ему, то есть он не общается с какими-то там граммар нации, с чистыми такими американцами, британцами, и нет людей, которые замечают ему, что, почему ты здесь не используешь present perfect, и это я к чему клоню, что не обязательно знать прям все, то есть ты можешь знать правила, но не обязательно прям постоянно на 100% верно там, использовать времена, какие-то конструкции, то есть если люди тебя понимают, то уже хорошо. И то, что он сказал we never promoted Telegram, для американца, для Такера, он, скорее всего, такой для себя, потому что, американцы, мне кажется, образованные не сказали бы так. Но он все равно понял Дурова.
On other social platforms in any way. This is very different from other apps. You could see them being promoted here or there. Telegram is different. All of our growth is purely organic. And we got to almost 900 million users without having to spend anything on ads to promote Telegram.
Amazing. I'm sorry to interrupt your narrative. No, it's just interesting because I have heard people say that, but it sounds like the opposite of the truth. So you decided to sell the company, resign as CEO, and leave your country.
Yes, that's what I did. It was a bit painful because obviously my first company was my baby. I created myself. There was a lot of creativity, time and effort invested in that platform. But at the same time, I understood that I would rather be free. I would want to take orders from anyone. And I left behind probably a comfortable life. But for me, it was never about becoming rich. For me, everything in my life was about becoming free.
Yes.
And to the extent it is possible, my mission in life was to allow other people to also become free, in a sense. And using the platforms that we created, or I created, my hope was that they could express their freedoms. This is the mission of Telegram, and it was also in part the mission of my previous company, VK.
We wanted to pause this interview just for a minute. So, did said we are searching for.
Yeah. So the idea for Telegram came when we were still based in Russia, because at some point we had this very stressful situation where armed policemen would come to my house, try to break in, because I refused to take down these opposition groups that I mentioned earlier. And I realized there is no secure means of communication. I realized I want to tell my brother what's going on, to coordinate whatever we want to do. And every tool to communicate I could use was not really secure, not encrypted. It was not safe to use them. So I thought, it could be a good idea to actually come up with a decently encrypted messaging app. And my brother, being the genius that he is, he was...
Он говорит decently encrypted messaging. Если зашифрованно имеется в виду, то тогда encrypted. Потому что просто encrypted — это словно как проклятый.
Messaging app.
Проклятое приложение.
My brother, being the genius that he is, he was able to create this encryption standard that we're using up until this day with minor changes. But the idea came.
So your brother wrote the encryption?
Yes. Well, my brother had 2 PhDs in maths, super smart. He could, he's an expert in cryptography. He designed the basic principles of the Telegram's encryption. I was more on the user interface side, the way how the app works, the features, etc. He was responsible for the encryption side.
So where did you go when you left Russia?
We tried several places. We first went to Berlin. We tried to set up a company in Berlin. We then tried London, Singapore, San Francisco, you name it. We've been everywhere. And
why didn't you stay in any of those places?
Oh, because the bureaucratic hurdles were just too difficult to overcome. You know, I was bringing the best in class programmers in the world to these places, and I was trying to hire them from a local company. And the response I got in places like Germany, for example, is that no, you can't hire people from outside of the European Union because you should first run some newspaper ad in the local magazine, whatever, and then if for 6 months nobody responds from the engineers.
And then if nobody responds for 6 months from
that are available inside the European Union and Germany, then you're allowed kind of to hire outsiders. And I thought it was a crazy idea because...
Why didn't you just say they were illiterate refugees?
Well, because we didn't consider ourselves refugees. We were, you know, very successful people. We could have gone anywhere.
I know, but if you told them you were illiterate refugees, they would let you stay. Yeah. So you go from Germany to Singapore to London to San Francisco. What happened in San Francisco?
Well, in San Francisco, we really thought that would be the place for us to be in because all the tech companies are
of course
there or around San Francisco. And there were two things that happened that made us think twice. Well, one thing is pretty obvious. I was in San Francisco. I got attacked on the street after visiting, I think it was Jack Dorsey in Twitter, in the Twitter's office. And I was walking back at 8 p.m. To my hotel, and I got attacked in the street. This is the only country where I got attacked in the street.
What happened?
Just three big guys tried to grab my phone from my hands. I was tweeting about the fact that I just met the founder of Twitter. That seemed like a right idea for me back then to do. And I got attacked. I didn't want to let them have my phone. They probably didn't expect resistance. So I snatched my phone back. There was a short fight with the guys. There was a little bit blood involved. But I managed to run away and decided I should probably
They
stay.
probably don't mug a lot of Russians. They might have been surprised.
Well, they were much taller than me, I must admit. And there were three of them. But I think I put up a good fight.
Were you surprised that this happened in San Francisco?
Completely.
Yeah.
It was a shock to me because I traveled a lot. That was the first place I got attacked. And I thought, all right, maybe we shouldn't look at San Francisco. Maybe there are other places in America where
you don't get attacked?
Yeah, exactly. But you know, there's this second part, which was probably more alarming there in the U.S. We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the U.S. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, wherever they are called.
The US government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools.
Вот мне нравится, что у Дурова у него есть разные глаголы. Он использует put up, good fight или persuade him. У него нет, он не использует только базовые глаголы типа do или get.
That he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the U.S. government to spy on people who use Telegram.
The U.S. government to maybe...
Но у него видно, что именно в теме, в которой он разбирается, вот криптография, это IT, вот у него много таких слов, то есть integrate. В этой теме видно, что он на английском языке может свободно разговаривать.
Any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor, regardless of who is using it.
That's right.
And
that's a little surprising to hear. Maybe it's not surprising. It's offensive. You're confident that happened?
Yes. There is no reason for my engineer to make up the stories. Also, because I personally experienced similar pressure in the US. Whenever I would go to the US, I would have two FBI agents greeting me at the airport, asking questions. One time I was having my breakfast at like 9 a.m. and the FBI showed up at my house that I was renting. And there was...
To show up at my house, значит, они появились у моего дома с ноткой неожиданности, что они словно вот материализовались.
Quite surprising. And I thought, we're getting too much attention here. It's probably not the best environment to run.
Why would had you committed a crime?
No, they were interested to learn more about Telegram. They knew I, left Russia. They knew what we were doing, but they wanted details. And my understanding is that they wanted to establish a relationship to kind of, in a way, control Telegram better. I understand that we're doing their job. It's just that for us running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be in. We want to be focused on what we do, not on government relations of that sort.
Все, пока остановимся. Следующие части выйдут также на канале. Продолжение этого интервью, разбора. Могу сказать точно, что у Дурова где-то B21 точно, насчет C2 не знаю, но помимо того, что у него есть вот этот и восточноевропейский акцент, чуть-чуть корежит, но в целом грамматика и вокабуляр у него хороши. То есть видно, что это человек, который часто общается на английском с коллегами или вообще неважно с кем. Так что его интересно слушать, и если вы хотите, чтобы я собрал слова и фразы с этого интервью, чтобы вы их тоже подучили, напишите в комментариях, также в других соцсетях, где я есть, например, Telegram или ВК, и я с удовольствием скину их. Давайте, до скорых встреч.